Hi guys, this is Janvi here. I am CEO and co-founder of Numetric. We're a cybersecurity firm, and warm welcome to my show called the Cyber News Show. This is our very first show, so I'm very excited to be here and to be talking to all of you. Cyber News is a show where we'll cover the latest ongoings in the world of cybersecurity across the globe, analyzing it and seeing what happened and what went wrong, and how, as an organization and as an individual, you can take some tips from us and prevent it from happening on your side. Let me welcome our cybersecurity expert, Mr. Shailendra Singh. Shailendra, thank you for being on the show. He's also my co-founder at Numetric. Shailendra, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me over.
Great, great. Shailendra, let's start with the most important thing that has happened this week in India, at least, with the 118 apps that have been banned. Right?
Right.
What is your take on that? Is that related to security? What actually happened? Let's dissect that. Let's see.
It is, yes, it is definitely related to security because the issue that is there with any software that is provided by China, specifically which has got a base in China, where their servers are located in China, the issue is that the Chinese laws are more um, focused towards and inclined towards providing that data to the Chinese government. That is how their privacy laws are set up, which is quite different from the rest of the world. And this is a cause for concern, specifically for a country like India, where there is ongoing friction between the two countries. So the Indian government has taken a proactive step to prevent the data of its citizens from leaking out to the Chinese government. That is the primary intention of this. Besides that, the level of control and the level of checks that are possible to be conducted on Chinese apps are limited. We do not know entirely as to whether any data that is stored in these apps, it could be your personal data, your name or your mobile number, the metadata that is generated, where you are located, your GPS location, all of those possibly are being saved in Chinese servers, and quite a bit of times it also happens that they are being done without the consent of the user. So keeping
So,
all
so
of these
what we're
things in
saying
mind,
here is that storing it in Chinese servers is a problem for us because one, the user doesn't know, probably an open consent is not taken, or being in another location, server being in China is the problem, or we could be spied upon.
yes, so the first part is the company that is providing that software is maybe not may not be taking consent from the user that we are collecting this data, and if you go by any privacy law, that is one of the underlying foundational principle that I will be obtaining your consent. So for example, if you compare with something like GDPR or CCPA, they mandate that the consent is obtained from the user, that this is the data we'll be collecting from you and this is what is the purpose we'll be using for. Given that these apps are created by Chinese companies, the laws there are different, and they do not mandate that these kind of actions are taken. That's part one. The part two is that because this data is located in China, um, as per the Chinese government laws, they have unrestricted access to any data that is stored within Chinese servers. That's a problem.
Okay, so just a slight tricky angle to this. Do you think it's only security related, or this could be a sort of a political decision as well? Obviously, because there are other things happening geopolitically, right, with between India and
Uh,
China.
So see, we can see a connection, a relationship between the first incident that happened of aggression between China and India, where when the Indian government had to push back Chinese troops from our territory, there was dispute, and this is when the first tranche of 59 apps were banned, which happened in June this year, and now again another second incident is going ongoing right now, and again this 118 apps ban has come. the immediate business impact the last time in June was significant on Chinese companies. About $5 billion degradation in market cap happened, and this time it is being claimed that Tencent alone has
14
lost,
billion.
yes, 14 or 18 billions is what I read.
18 billion, yeah. Okay.
Right.
So, what do you think is the impact of banning these apps on the business of Indian business users? Because there's WeChat, there's so many other products which we were using from a communication standpoint at a business level. And we have good alternatives. What is the impact on that, do you think?
So as far as alternatives go, we have alternatives from all over the world. So even if we take, let's say, Zoom, for example, Zoom, the founder is Chinese, but the company is based in US. It was always based in US. It was never a Chinese company, right? Now Zoom, in effect, becomes an alternative, one of the alternatives. In parallel to that, in the Indian government itself came up with a program where Indian companies would be provided support to create alternatives which could be used. And in
Yeah, the
fact,
Atmanirbhar
one
program got impetus because of
right,
this. Yes, yes.
and in fact, already one app has been is being promoted, and the government is likely to give the contract to it.
So that leads me to the next question of if you read yesterday, there was a PUBG equivalent of the Indian version of PUBG called 4G, that is Fearless uh, something Guard, right? United Guard. So is that a good thing? What do you think? Because PUBG in itself is a very you know, an app that has caused a lot of other social problems, not business or any other kind of problems or security problems. Do you think it's a good thing to just sort of find an alternative to all of them, because that particular app wasn't a great app, right?
Yes, see, but when anything is popular and it has become successful, there will always be contenders, trying to get into that same popularity, same success, and in effect, they will lose out to market dynamics if they are not able to cater to the extent that the champion was, right. If one of them does not succeed, I'm sure that another one will come up, because it is the first one who comes up with the idea that is successful. But the moment they become successful, now the idea is known. To execute a known idea is far simpler, right? So PUBG was the first one. It came up with a brilliant idea which succeeded. Now contenders should be able to catch up.
Yeah, but I think my opinion, especially on 4G and replicating PUBG, is I think we should be careful there because it has a very severe negative impact on the younger generation and the millennials. So whoever is launching it and implementing it, yes, there's a big business benefit, but at a big cost to the kids in the country. So let's see how that goes.
Right.
So now coming even more closer to a person we all, I think, really like and respect, our Prime Minister Modi ji. So his Twitter account was hacked 2 days
Right.
ago,
Right.
and it seemed like a hack for monetary reasons, but nonetheless it was hacked, which is a very severe situation. So what happened there? What do you think happened? How did we deal with it?
So there is a South Korean hacker group called John Wick. That is the one that has claimed responsibility for this Twitter hack. And if you
John
remember,
Wick.
John Wick, yes. And if you
Oh, okay.
remember, this is similar to a similar incident that had happened earlier with Elon Musk's account and Apple account. Again, Twitter was hacked there. But this time around, it is different because unlike earlier, where that group had actually compromised Twitter employees, this time around, it is the people who control this PM Modi's account are the ones who have been targeted, and the attack was successful, and it was done through social engineering. So
Right.
if you are aware, the way social engineering works is that I'll probably try to find ways in which I can trick you into providing the credentials to me. And then once I have your credentials, then I can log in and do whatever that it is that I wish to do.
Could you give an example? Maybe not, you may not know what exactly happened in this Twitter hack case, but how does social engineering work? Could you tell us, please?
See, one of the most common example is called as business email compromise attack, BEC. The way it works is that you are sent an email that looks authentic, that looks real, and there are possibly links in there which, when you click, it will ask you to log into some account. And in this particular case, it could be something like this, that someone sends you a mail saying that your Twitter account is going to be suspended or something like that, and you panic and you click on it. It takes you to a page where it asks you to log into your Twitter account, but actually it is not the Twitter page. It is a copy that has been created. Now when you feed in your username and password, it will possibly, to prevent you from identifying that you have been compromised, it will actually send you to the Twitter page, right? But you are already logged into it, so you'll not realize it. But what has happened before that step is your username and password that you typed in, assuming that you're typing on the Twitter page, actually has been sent to the hackers. Now, if let's say I was the attacker, I would have your credentials, and then immediately after that, I will attempt to log into it. So that is just one
So
way.
has
There are a lot of other
okay.
ways that this can be executed.
So has his account been restored or does it still remain hacked? Would you know?
No, it has been restored, but before the restoration was done, and this restoration obviously is done by the service provider. So in this case, it was Twitter. After the between the time from the compromise till the restoration, in this particular case, what happened is that they posted messages saying that please donate to the PM National Relief Fund, but actually they had provided a
Fine.
Bitcoin wallet address.
So do you know if anybody lost money by paying bitcoins? I guess in India it
Uh,
may not have happened.
No, it is not known yet. It is not a very easy method to make payments to, but I'm sure that someone has definitely lost some money.
Okay. All right. And last week, one of the world's critical and big stock exchanges was hacked, the New Zealand stock exchanges, and it happened through the week, right? And a stock exchange was hacked, and I don't think they were able to stop it or prevent it. So, what happened there? Please share your analysis of that.
So it is not that it went down for 2 days. It went down for two instances on 2 days for a short period of time. But given that we are talking of a stock exchange, it's a even 5 minutes is a long amount of time, and we are talking of a national stock exchange.
Yeah.
The background on this story is that in about November last year, there was a Russian group called Fancy Bear. That is what is being quoted as the one responsible for it. They were threatening the New York stock exchange for giving them ransom. And the threat was that if you do not give us a ransom, we will launch a DDoS attack on you, distributed denial of service. The way this attack works is that your servers will be overwhelmed with so many requests coming in that your servers will eventually crash. And the idea is to just bring down your application. Now, when we are talking of a stock exchange being brought down, you're effectively stopping national business. And because of that, even a short downtime is actually going to be having serious consequences. But the New Zealand
Okay, so
government,
this
the
was a
CERT-Z,
DDoS attack. So could you elaborate a little on? Sorry, I think there was a bit of a internet glitch. Go on, continue. What are you saying?
yeah, so I was saying that CERT-Z, CERTNZ, this is, usually every country has got a computer emergency response team. That is what is shortened as CERT. The CERT-NZ, which is for the New Zealand uh, region, they were also notified about it, but then it was decided that, no action should be taken and no ransom needs to be paid out because, in effect, it is cyber terrorism. And since this warning was not acted upon by the New Zealand government. That is why this attack came following the November 2019 threat. And it is being said that this is more of a scare tactic. It is not that it was a full-fledged attack, which means that we may expect that there may be more instances of this kind. It is important that entities do not cave into such kind of tactics.
So two things here. So it was a DDoS attack, and the ransom that was demanded was not given. The organization, the government did not cave in, did not give the ransom, right? What is a DDoS attack? What happens in a DDoS attack?
DDoS stands for Distributed Denial of Service. The way it works is that every application is running from a server, and the server is in effect a more powerful version of your usual computer, and there is a certain number of requests that it can handle every second. For example, let's say your server is capable of handling 10,000 requests, which means 10,000 different connections can be made to that computer requesting for something to be served to the requester. Maybe when we are accessing a website, I'm sending a request that please send me the HTML code of your particular website. Something similar goes on for all applications. What happens in case someone is capable of sending, let's say, 1 million requests? Obviously, your server is not capable of handling 1 million requests per second, for example, because you have configured it to be able to handle only 10,000, in which case it will get overwhelmed, and it will eventually crash. It will stop serving those remaining set of people. Now, a large share of those remaining people may be your actual users, your actual customers, and in effect, they will not be able to access your application.
So how
This is
does
the
one overcome a DDoS attack?
See, in theory, there is really no way to prevent a DDoS attack because it's something that is completely outside your control. Although you can set up web application firewalls with rules that can identify these patterns and automatically block those IP addresses. The issue with DDoS attacks is that because it is not originating from a single IP address of the attacker, it is basically distributed. That's why the distributed name. You will have to end up blocking each of those IP addresses, and this is something that a human cannot identify because they're happening at a very high rate. A computer, on the other hand, can possibly do that. A computer which is specifically designed for this purpose, and that is what a web application firewall does.
So this is a way to prevent, but what if you're experiencing a DDoS attack? What should an organization do, however large or small?
No, so I equate DDoS more to a storm, and there are beyond certain basic measures that you can take of protecting things that are a part of your environment. It is more of a weathering the storm thing, right? If someone has decided to
Okay.
launch a DDoS attack on you, hopefully your servers are automatically scaling. You're capable of weathering that storm, and maybe you have got alternates that automatically users are rerouted to. There are ways to do it, but it's too technical for me to be able to explain it.
Sure, sure, sure. Yes, I was just expecting a crisp, few statements, that's all. So, friends, thank you for joining on my show today. These are the topics that have, incidents that have occurred in the last few days all over the world. So I hope you liked our analysis of it and some solutions that was given by our expert, Shailendra. And do reach out to us if you want us to cover something, you want to hear about it, or something in the next few weeks, next few days that will happen, and you want us to talk about it in our next show. Okay, so keep a lookout, and we'll announce the next date of our show. Thank you for joining, Shailendra. Thank you so much for coming and making time for me and for this show. Viewers, thank you so much. Bye. Good day.